Hey all, my name is Eric Anderson. For my topic, I was given the soft field takeoff, soft field approach, and the soft field landing. There's a lot to cover, but let's just jump right into it. So for my references, I'm using the PIM, the POH, the Airplane Flying Handbook, a couple of YouTube videos as well. My materials for this is going to be this visual aid. It's going to be a plane right here, of this being the nose and this being the tail section, as well as this whiteboard and this marker. I've already read out the main structure of today's lesson for my visual learners. I'm also going to be teaching using auditory and then as well as a little bit of kinesthetic with a little bit of hands-on by my fellow student over there, Jeffrey, whenever he will be used here in a little bit whenever I ask him to. So, today's objective is to have a basic understanding and basic route knowledge of the soft field approach, soft field landing, and the soft field takeoff. So today I'm basically going to be treating y'all like you are already a private pilot, because I would not teach a soft field approach and a soft field landing as well as a soft field takeoff unless you guys had a basic understanding on how to do these things. And for Liberty, for an example, we start off on pavement, so there's no reason to go ahead and treat this or show this right off the bat. So with that prior knowledge, we've already went over the objective. I have a couple of homework and a couple of questions towards the end of today's lesson, which I'm going to ask you guys, but let's just get jumped right into it. So, soft field takeoff. What is a soft field takeoff and why do we need it? All right, so we'll start off with a situation. Let's just say we're going on a beach trip. So the great thing about the beach is obviously it's sunny, it's warm, and it's amazing. But one of the very far negatives is we're going to not have as much choices on our landing spots. So whenever you're not having as much landing spots, you're going to have to deal with some unfortunate things, such as having maybe a soft field airport, which for us, the fortunate part is since we're a private pilot, we're definitely able to go ahead and do a soft field approach, soft field landing, and soft field takeoff. And it's a lot easier inside of our Cessna Skyhawk. But just starting off, let's go ahead and look at, what we need. So starting off as private pilots, we already know we're going to have weather. So once we get our ATIS and we have a good mindset of what the weather is and where it is, we're basically going to be seeing where the wind direction is coming from. That's going to be our main concern in this category. And the reason why is because we're going to have to deal with a crosswind correction. So what is a crosswind correction and what is a crosswind? Well, crosswind is whenever the wind is not directly parallel to the runway and it's coming at maybe at a slight angle. So for that, it's going to be ailerons into the wind while using our opposite rudder. So either side is same thing, just in reverse. So the wind's from the right aileron in. If the wind's from the left aileron. Okay, so once we have a good idea of our winds, we're also going to be wanting to look at maybe density altitude. Are we going to float today? How fast are we going to be able to lift off? Is our ground roll going to be a little bit further? Is it going to be a little bit shorter? Just having a basic whole understanding of our weather whenever it comes to this category. Next, we're going to be going into taxi. So for taxi, the biggest whole mindset of a soft field takeoff and a soft field landing is keeping the nose wheel off and being as gentle with the aircraft as possible. With these off-road conditions, we might have a little bit more gravel, we might have a little bit more bumps. So on the taxi, we're going to be keeping our yoke all the way back. So in the aircraft, we're going to be pulling all the way to our chest, basically, and we're going to be taxiing without brakes. That is another huge part of the taxi. We won't be using brakes, so not be going too fast, obviously. Once we get on the runway, we're going to be, or before we get on the runway, we're going to be setting our flaps to 10, so 10 degrees. All right, Eric. So why do we want to do 10 degrees? Well, the reason why is because with more flaps, we're going to have better lift. Well, I'm glad you asked, why wouldn't we just put in all the flaps? Well, the reason why is because if you put in more flaps, you're going to have more drag. And we don't want to have more drag in this case because we're getting off the ground as fast as possible and we don't want to put us into an inverted stall. So remember, 10 degrees flaps is the perfect lift to drag ratio whenever we're talking about a soft field takeoff. Next, once we get on the runway, we're going to be doing a continuous roll while not using brakes. And once we get us parallel on center line, we're going to go ahead and go full power. Same process as a normal takeoff. We're going to make sure everything's in the green, make sure the airspeed's alive, and we're going to be keeping, the biggest difference though is we're going to be keeping our yoke all the way back while we're on the nose wheel. And the objective is to get into ground effect. Well, what is ground effect? Well, ground effect is basically half the length or half the width of the wings, and it's basically a part where the wing vortices will be hitting your underwing, keeping you up and stabilized. This is where our induced drag is going to start becoming up on our highest. So we're going to be having to counter that as well. Okay, so once we get in the ground effect, we're basically going to be building up speed. We're not wanting to take off, so we're going to be pushing the nose back down after we've lift off. So remember, starting off, nose will wheel all the way back off, keep on going, and then we get in the ground effect. So we're wheeling down the runway, and then we're basically going to be leveling off, going right here, building up that speed. Okay, once we build up enough speed, we're going to be going in and we're going to reduce our flap load. So once we get to 60 knots, clear of obstacles, flaps are coming up, hit our climb speed of 56 knots indicated airspeed to clear an obstacle, or we'll go in and we'll execute VY 74 knots indicated airspeed. Once we get to this standpoint, it's the same mindset as a normal takeoff. Okay, let's go into a couple of common errors. So some of the common errors we see is we hit pitch and ground effect too soon. Now, you asked me earlier, or I said earlier, we want to get in ground effect as soon as possible. While that is true, we don't want to be putting ourselves in an inverted stall condition. So another one of the factors, like I said right here, so we're coming back, is rejected takeoff. Okay, so if we're hitting that pitch and that ground effect too soon and we hear the stall horn, that might not be a rejected takeoff. That might just be a little bit of a powered on stall, which in that case, we just simply push the nose down, we break the angle of attack, and then we're having directional airflow over the wings once again. So that is the case in that case for the pitch and entering ground effect too soon. But what other factors would we hit a rejected takeoff? Well, that might be, common for other takeoffs. We have maybe an engine failure. Maybe we have a little bit of engine trouble. So we don't really want to be able to go in and reject for everything, but rejection is definitely an option, and it is always, always, always safer to reject a takeoff than to push something that is not there. Next up is going to be brakes and yoke. We see a lot of common errors, like we said there with the taxi. People maybe add on a little bit of the brakes, they add on a little bit of the yoke, and then lastly, crosswind correction. So, like you said, ailerons on the wind using opposite rudder. Moving down, these are the main ACS skill standards. We covered a lot of the ACS knowledge and risk section, but for the main ACS skills, it's going to be plus 10 knots, minus 5 for the indicated airspeed, as well as being as fast as possible, so getting into ground effect as fast as possible while being safe with it. And then lastly, directional control, which goes back towards the ground, which goes back towards crosswind control for that as well. So for the homework, I have the Airplane Flying Handbook, which is going to be reading chapters 12 through 13, as well as a couple of questions for you guys for the takeoff. So starting off, when and what's airspeed should we typically enter around ground effect? Perfect. We should be entering ground effect around 48 knots, right above stall speed, but as soon as we can. But basically, around that general area is whenever we'll have that first liftoff. It's around 48, depending on the weather conditions. And my next question is, what don't we want to use whenever we're taxiing? Perfect. The brakes, and we do not want to be using, we don't want to be stopping with the brakes. That is huge for us. So no brakes, and we don't want to be using excess flaps. Only 10 degrees of flaps. Alrighty, so in conclusion, for the soft field takeoff, we want to basically be coming in at a very slower, we want to basically be lifting off sooner than possible while keeping the nose wheel off and being as gentle as possible. So now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and move over to our soft field approach and soft field landing. So let me get this situated for the viewers, and I'll move it over there, make sure everything's looking great. All right, cool. So for the soft field approach and takeoff, it's basically going to be the same category and same mindset as for the soft field takeoff. It's going to want to be a lot more gentle. It's going to be coming in a lot slower, but just mainly keeping the pressure off the nose wheel. So for the materials, same thing. We're going to be having our plane. We're going to having our whiteboard and our marker. And then same thing for our visual aid. Our objective is still the same thing. It's going to be learning a basic route understanding while having a little bit of skills into the soft field approach and landing. And same references for me, the PIM, the POH, as well as the homework is going to be very similar, but a little bit different. So we'll get to that point whenever we do. So getting started, same idea as a soft field takeoff. Why would we use this? Well, maybe we're on a beach, maybe we need to take off. But the other big one is emergency landings. Okay, so mostly your emergency landings, if you have to land off field, it's going to basically be inside of rougher terrain. So we're going to basically be executing the same mindset of a soft field approach and landing towards our emergency landing. So it's going to be landing as slow as possible while keeping the pressure off while landing and not putting any pressure on the mains. Okay, so let's get started. So a soft field approach and landing, same idea. We want to be having a lookout for the weather. So this is mainly consisting of our density altitude, maybe crosswind, any other types of adverse weather conditions that might affect kind of the safety and stabilization of the flight. So once we figure all that out and we're able to go, let's go ahead and move into the approach. So the normal approach, it's going to be right here. So normal approach category. So underneath 115, 10 degrees flaps, underneath 85, 20, and then eventually full. Same mindset coming in at 90 knots. Slowing down to eventually, 85 and then eventually 65 with those flaps in there. The one big difference is going to be our full flaps at 61 knots indicated airspeed. We're going to be coming in at that approach because we want to be landing, like we said, as soft as possible. So whenever I'm coming in, I'm basically want to be right here. I want to be 90 and then eventually 85, 65, and then once we're going in, I want to be 61 knots indicated airspeed. So basically the same mindset of just dropping off the airspeed and just coming slower and slower. Okay, now we're going to be talking about flaring and getting a little bit into ground effect. So once we are already down and we're coming down on our approach, we're going to start that flare about 1 to 2 feet above the runway. We might get a little bit of ground effect, so we might have a little bit of that boost, but it's very important to continually pull back in that flare. Once we land, we're going to be doing the same thing as we were talking about with the soft field taxi and even takeoff. We're going to be wheeling down the runway, keeping our pressure off the nose wheel by full yoke back. So big idea right there. Like we said, wheelie and then aerodynamic braking. Once again, do not want to use the brakes. With the aerodynamic braking, what is that? It's pulling back on our yoke, which is going to in turn cause our elevator to slow us down. So we're not putting any pressure on the actual wheels, but we're basically putting it on the elevator in the back. All right, go-arounds. Everybody knows go-arounds. They're free. Go-arounds are a little bit differently in a soft field landing. Go ahead and process that real quick. The reason why is because we're coming down and we're going to be a lot slower. So we don't want to immediately go in and just yank back up and go around. It's a little bit differently, so we're going to maybe want to build up a little bit of airspeed, but same mindset as a normal go-around. Full power, and then nose down, and then reducing the flaps. Same idea, building up airspeed. But like we said, since we're in ground effect, we're going to be a lot slower. We're basically going to be, it's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to be full power, nose down, just to build up a little bit more airspeed. Flaps are coming up and going around and making sure we're using the proper radio calls throughout this whole entire process. All right, lastly is going to be the lasso and a little bit other things. A land and hold short, you're not going to really experience as much as a private because mostly whenever you're put in that situation, you're going to go ahead and decline it. And the reason why you're going to want to decline it is because on a private pilot standpoint, we're basically brand new to the flying world. It's not smart. We want to have that whole entire runway length, but you are perfectly legal to do that. Okay, let's get into some of the common errors and some of the other ACS standards. So some of the common errors we have is going to be directional control. Why do you think that is? Well, a couple things. One, crosswind correction, which is going to be huge, and as well as whenever we're landing, we're not landing on pavement or asphalt. We're landing on rougher terrain, so we might have a little bit more bumps, which in turn might make it a little bit more rougher. I mean, there's a lot of different situations that could happen with this. Nextly is going to be improper use of calculations. Same thing as the normal approach and landing. We might have a longer ground roll, we might have a shorter ground roll. Just basically, we want to have a good and proper calculations, taking in the mindset that we're landing on a soft field, not asphalt, soft field. All right, the ACS standard for this is going to be very similar to the soft field takeoff, plus 10 minus 5 for the indicated airspeed for the approach, and then the cross correction, as well as landing on the first third of the runway, as well as being very soft on the nose wheel. So that's kind of basically interpreted by the DPE, so we're able to know what that is. So for today's homework, we're going to have the Airplane Flying Handbook, sections 923 through 924. So we have some of the questions, and I'm going to bring in my companion Jeffrey over here to basically help me answer these questions. And Jeffrey, you can stand right here. So first off, why and when would we be using braking? And how would we be braking?
To slow down your speed.
All right. Good answer, but what we're looking for more is the reason why we're wanting to use aerodynamic braking is because we're wanting to stay off the brakes in order to slow us down without putting much more stress on the tires because we're in this soft ground. All right, lastly, under what conditions would you not want to land on a soft field runway?
When it's rainy and it's like mushy.
Perfect. Yep. So whenever it's rainy and mushy, we wouldn't want to do that because we want to get stuck and we want to have that roll. So those are the two biggest things. So in conclusion today, we basically covered the soft field takeoff, the soft field approach and landing, and just had a basic route and understanding as well as a little bit of application inside the aircraft while covering all the ACS standards, including the risk and the knowledge section, as well as covering a minor little bit of the skills section as well. Class, just want to say thank you for paying attention to the video, and my name is Eric Anderson, and thank you.